Hi everyone, I'm Dr. Z. I'm a clinical psychologist specializing in transgender care. Welcome to my channel. If you're new, make sure you subscribe. If you are a regular visitor who have not yet subscribed, make sure you also do. Everybody has got to also follow my Instagram account linked below. When you follow me on here or on Instagram, you are not only supporting me, but you're also helping a lot of other people find this content. And right now, more than ever, we need to support professionals and allies who are able to deliver very informative, very specific information. So please go ahead and subscribe and make sure you support me. Having said that, today I want to share with you the top 3 mistakes that you can potentially make when you're starting on your gender path. These 3 mistakes are really, really important. They're really, really important to pay attention to, no matter where you're at. They're really important for you to analyze if you perhaps are further along, to still go back and see what you can do in terms of maybe implement some of the things that I will be sharing with you. These three, I would call mistakes, yes, 3 mistakes are very important. And the reason why they're very important is because I have seen by now a lot of individuals who come to me for individual therapy after either trying to do things solo. Now, to be clear, you don't need to see a gender specialist in order to move forward on your gender path. You can absolutely do the solo. Gender therapy is not mandatory. But some people who have come to me have done it solo. And as a result, they just felt like they either didn't really get very far, experienced a lot of roadblocks, a lot of challenges, feel as a result more confused. I've also seen individuals who've been working with other so-called claiming to be gender therapists, when in reality, they did not had any experience or lacked significant experience to be able to help individuals make right decisions. So this is where the 3 mistakes stem from. Without further ado, the first mistake that I would recommend for anybody starting on the gender path to address is when you are starting to experience gender dysphoria. Remember, you can experience that early in childhood and may have history, decades of living with it, or you may have had a sudden onset of it when suddenly one day you woke up and you just feel like, wait a second, I'm all of a sudden feeling a deep disconnection with my gender assigned at birth. Regardless of when you start to experience gender dysphoria, the very first thing that is really, really is important is to find out what is the root issue underneath your gender dysphoria, meaning where does your gender dysphoria come from? And I know that a lot of you might be quick to say, well, Dr. Z, the root issue is gender identity. And I'm going to say that is absolutely not true. Not for everybody. For a lot of people, yes, it is. But for a lot of other people, the root issue, the root cause is something else. I've been speaking more vocally and much more about this because this is so important. Gender dysphoria is very complex, it is very nuanced. The reality is that all types of people experience gender dysphoria. Cis people who have complete comfort with their gender assigned at birth may and do experience dysphoria. People who had severe sexual abuse, not all, again, we're not here to pinpoint anybody. People who had severe trauma, people who have perhaps struggled with other severe secondary type of mental concern or diagnosis, individuals who had body dysmorphia, any of those individuals and more can experience what feels like gender dysphoria when the root cause is something else. So why is it so important to understand what the root cause is? Because the understanding root cause is going to really inform for you what you're going to do about your gender. It's really going to inform what treatment, what path you're going to take. Here's a very clear-cut example. For somebody who comes in and they present gender dysphoria and they've been diagnosed with gender dysphoria, but after some time, the psychologist has realized that, wait a second, the root cause for you right now is actually the body dysmorphia you feel, versus somebody who comes in and they experience gender dysphoria, they've been diagnosed with gender dysphoria, and the root cause is really stemming from gender identity issues. Here's two individuals, both feel gender dysphoria, two different root causes. Well, guess what? For a lot of people who may have body dysmorphia, working on that and addressing that may lead to them feeling much more comfortable with their bodies and therefore eradicate the distress they feel in regards to their gender assigned at birth. Versus for people for whom the root cause is gender identity, no amount of psychotherapy talking there and trying to make them comfortable with the body is not going to work, because if it's gender identity and if they feel strongly incongruent with their body, because how the body is anchored and tied to the gender assigned at birth, well, guess what? They're going to need a different type of solution. So this is a great example to show you. So understanding the root cause is going to be number one. It's going to be really important. A lot of you who have struggled with dysphoria from a young age, for you, it's a slam dunk. You know it's been gender dysphoria and you know it's been tied to your gender identity since you were little, because you felt it at a visceral level, you experienced it year after year. And so for you, you already know very clearly your root cause truly is gender identity. But this is why it's important. This is, and one of the most important things is to prevent people from taking the route of solution, of treatment that may not be actually as alleviating or helpful. I'm going to say and bring up the transition histories again, because we do experience a lot of young adults who did transitioning, and it's not good or bad. It is just deeply unfortunate. Now, a lot of people who are detransitioning, they detransitioning because their identity has evolved into something else. Yes, our identities are not static. For some of us, they're more fluid. They tend to evolve. And sometimes what we felt like we identified as may have shifted over time. And yet, there are some people who unfortunately realize that gender identity was never a root issue. It was never the cause of dysphoria. And that's unfortunate, because people do go through things such as hormones, especially masculinizing hormones that has much more reversible things, effects on the body, or gender affirming surgeries. And this is why examining root issue is important for all of you. First of all, it will give you a peace of mind. And I think that's very valuable to have. And second of all, hey, I honestly don't know any adult in my experience who would not, let me put it that way, gender transition for 100% of adults I work with is a very challenging path, even for people who know it will make them in the end happier. Almost everybody I work with would rather not go through it if they did not have to. So if some people actually have an avenue to discover that it's something that may not be even tied to gender identity as a root cause and can be addressed with psychotherapy alone, in my opinion, that would be a relief. And I think that's important to address. So, mistake number one is not really understanding what is the root cause, what is causing it. Mistake number two that I see people make when they start their gender transition path is not really getting a grasp and understanding of what gender dysphoria means to you. Gender dysphoria, no matter how it is written in DSM, which is Diagnostic Statistical Manual of Psychiatric Disorders, no matter how, when you Google it and AI brings up description, or even I tell you what gender dysphoria is, no matter what anybody tells you, it's a generalized snapshot. The DSM description or the Google description of what gender dysphoria is that you see is there to create a blueprint, a baseline, a backbone. On top of this blueprint and baseline, what I build up when I work with people is your personality type, your character, any other mental health predispositions, your surroundings, your environment, your upbringing, your level of understanding of what gender dysphoria is, your level of relationship to your body, whether you are thinking type or feeling type. There's so much goes on top of that baseline. And as you can realize, once all of that gets layered on top of the blueprint, no two individuals' experiences of the dysphoria is going to look alike. Sure, there's going to be some similarities and overlap, but how somebody who is, for example, in their 30s has zero support, also on top of that, has anxious predispositions, and also struggles with something else, is going to experience gender dysphoria is going to be drastically different than somebody in their 40s, even, for example, has support, has no other predispositions. Do you see what I mean? So it's really important for all of you to start asking yourself, if you're not working with therapists, to start asking yourself, what is what does gender dysphoria feel like to me? This is why a lot of people freak out when they hear that for somebody it is so severe. They literally daydream and fantasize about cutting particular body parts. Some people just get very confused by that severity because they think this is nowhere near what I experience. For me, just I feel very neutral about my genitals, for example. It's because everybody experiences distress different. Somebody's coping style might be better than others. If somebody's coping style is every time dysphoria hits and I feel anxious and worried about it, I engage in healthy coping and I exercise. I acknowledge I'm feeling dysphoria, but I'm going to ground my body in exercise and I'm just going to shake up that energy. Well, that person is going to feel lesser distress of dysphoria than somebody whose coping style is, I'm just going to pour myself a glass of wine and I'm going to then drink a whole bottle in order to forget that I experienced dysphoria. And now you're stuffing it psychologically. One is acknowledging and does something about it in a healthy way. Another one is stuffing it and really negating the fact that it exists in an unhealthy way and paying for it more drastically the next day by feeling more hungover, by feeling unwell. Again, just as simple as coping style can lead to different experiences of gender dysphoria and how it will manifest in those two individuals. So understanding, asking yourself those things if you're not working with therapists, how do I feel? Why do I feel the same way? When it gets really bad, what's causing it really bad? Have I been under stress lately? Which, by the way, as the stress level goes up, dysphoria tends to go up. So all of those things are going to give you an understanding of how you're responding and feeling about it. Now, why is this so important and why is this can lead to a mistake? If you don't understand your dysphoria and how it orients you, you then can't really um, think about which first treatment steps to engage in, right? You can't really, that's actually when people fall into the trap of, oh, I'm just going to go have this surgery now because that seems like the first step to do, versus, wait a second, what is the biggest distress? Where am I getting the most distress? Is it really a particular body part? And if it is, which body part is it? Is it something else? Could it be my facial hair that is giving me the most distress versus jumping into surgeries or any other kind of things? So it will inform in other ways how you're going to move forward. For a lot of individuals who are in a position where you are even wondering, is this transition worth it for me? You're wondering whether it's going to benefit or make your life better. A lot of times, people who do wonder this are people who have a lot of their own other personal ecosystems built around them, such as you have, you're in a relationship, you most likely have children or a child, you also have most likely an established careers. And as a result of that, you feel very fearful of taking the transition path, even though you might really want to, because you feel like you're going to give up everything you have built over here. You feel like you're going to lose everything you're going to have over here. I have a lot of people who I work with who ask me, what else can I do other than transition? And this is where understanding what is your level of distress is crucial. I had clients who've been with me for a very long time who have never taken any transition steps. Why? Because we're constantly working and we're constantly analyzing their coping ways and we're constantly working on making sure that their coping are as healthy as possible to minimize the distress. Now, I wish that they took the plunge, And transition, because I know they'll be happy, of course, but guess what? It's not for me to decide. Everybody has to decide based on their circumstances. And some people truly feel like it's better for them to find a way to cope with it for the rest of their life. And so the goal then becomes, all right, I'm going to respect your decision. Let's find a way to cope with it in the most healthiest way, which actually serves to minimize the distress versus really increase the distress you feel. So this is mistake number 2 I see. People don't have a grasp of understanding what their distress is, where it's coming from, what's contributing the most, and therefore they jump into things, especially, for example, in today's culture, people are very quick to equate, oh, gender dysphoria equals you're trans. Oh, it equals you must go through medical and surgical transition. And people don't give time to themselves to think, is there other potential avenues? And while medical and surgical, without a doubt, is incredibly important and absolutely does save lives, it's not for everybody. So this is mistake number 2, not understanding the severity, the scope, the nuances of dysphoria in relationship to you, not to anybody else, but to you. And mistake number 3 that I see a lot of people make when they start on their gender path is not really having a clear goal nor a plan. And the first 2 mistakes that I said are going to fall right into the trap. If you don't know what the root cause of your gender dysphoria is, and if you don't understand the scope and how gender dysphoria presents for you specifically in realm of your context and your subjective reality, how then are you supposed to see what your goals are? How then are you supposed to know what your plan is? I see a lot of people who come to me who just kind of, that analogy, threw spaghetti up on a wall and hope something is going to stick, meaning they tried everything and anything. As a result, some things have backfired, some things happened too fast for them, quite traumatized them, to be frankly. And now they're shell shocked. They still want to go out there and live their authentic selves, but they just don't know where else to start or how to navigate it. If you don't understand what you're struggling with, what the root cause of your gender dysphoria, and how gender dysphoria presents for you, again, you're going to be sailing there amidst big ocean without knowing where you're going, and you are going to be lost. In the very least, if you're not going to be lost, you are going to spend a lot of time. You most likely are going to spend longer time suffering with dysphoria than necessary. You might also take steps that are not really going to necessarily benefit you. You might do things in order and in a way that's also not going to be the best given your circumstances. While there is no particular manual, right? There's no particular, oh, you do this in 6 months, you do this and this. No, there's only manual for you. And your manual is situated in your context. It's situated in your realm of your reality. And if you're coming to me and we're working together and your biggest concern is coming out at your work because you don't feel like your work environment is inclusive, guess what? Coming out at work is not going to be your first or second or third step. Why? Because then it's going to create more anxiety, more stress for you that you don't need right now, especially when there's so many other steps on your path you can take before you come to that place. And all of the steps leading up to that will make you feel more affirmed, more confident. So then when you do come out at work, you are not so wrapped up in fear and anxiety. This is what I mean. But this can only happen if you know what your plan and goals is and where you are going. Everybody has different goals. Not everybody's goal is to pass. Not everybody's goal is surgery. Not everybody's goal is even hormones. Like I said, some people's goal is how can I survive this? How can I live with it long term? How can I cope with it long term? Some people goal is how can I transition as fast as possible? Some people goal is how can I transition in a way where there's less obstacles I run against. And all of that has to be informed and again situated in your reality, in your context, in your circumstances, in your subjective experience to not only yourself, but the people around you. Not to mention your typology, your personality, so many other factors are going to come into play. So those are the three most biggest mistakes I see people make when they start on their gender path, whatever that path may be for you. I'm mindful not to say gender transition because not everybody seeks transition. Again, not understanding what the root cause or not evaluating what the root cause is. Not really understanding or grasping how dysphoria presents for you. Remember, the way it presents for you is different the way it presents to everybody else because you are unique. The way you cope is unique. The way you see the world is unique. The way your mind work is unique. The way you process stress and anxiety is going to be unique to you. So of course, dysphoria is going to be it's going to really be seen and felt differently for you than for anybody else, and not having a clear plan and goal. So, no matter where you're at right now, you can still apply all of this. It's never too late to go back and to re-examine what the root issue. It is never too late to go back and to understand how gender dysphoria presents for you. It is never, ever, ever too late to reevaluate where your sales are taking you amidst that big ocean and to create a plan, to create goal, and to shift the direction you're going in. You can absolutely do it. That's why I'm making this video. There's never such thing as too late. You can turn back, you can reevaluate, you can apply the things, and trust me, you're going to be in a much better position. You're going to have a very clear understanding, clear vision. When you have clarity, when you really understand where gender dysphoria coming from for you, when you understand how it feels for you and how it presents for you, and on top of that, you have a goal and a plan, well, my friend, let me tell you that you are feeling so much more confident, so much ready. Are you going to be still afraid? Yes. Are you still going to be anxious and fearful? Of course. But you're going to be in much more position than a whole bunch of other people who have never thought about these three mistakes and putting them into place. Comment below, let me know what your thoughts are, where you find yourself as you're watching this video, and I will see you all next time. Goodbye.